Good afternoon and happy fall. I can't believe the leaves are changing already. And as you know, Christmas will be just around the corner. So I guess it's time for us to start considering buying presents and doing what we got to do there. One of those presents I know many people this day and age would love to have would be a home. And being in real estate, sometimes I forget that not everybody is as in tune to what's transpiring in the real estate industry as I am, as I deal with this on a consistent basis. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard about in the news and radio and seen articles here and there, but maybe it'd be good for me to perhaps go over the recent stats, recent history, reflecting predominantly on this past September and kind of what's transpiring out there. So that when you're talking to your friends, colleagues, whatever else, you can say, okay, well, here's what my realtor has got to say about what's happening out there. So I'm going to dive into it a little bit. There's going to be a lot of information I've posted down below, of course, much of which is based around the real estate and what's transpiring there. So if you really want to dive into the deeper details of what I'm talking about, by all means, scroll down to my newsletter, check it out, or if you don't have a copy of that newsletter, reach out to me and I'd be more than happy to share that with you. I'm going to be reflecting a lot on the information in there. In particular, I'm going to start with the QAR, its recent September update. Now we're in October, and of course they've reflected on the fact that we have huge demand. Sales are down from what we had the previous September, but they did highlight the fact that last September was record highs. So it's not really fair to say, oh, sales are down, and it's looking like this may be one of our best or highest years of sales out there. So just because we're down as far as number of sales does not really truly reflect a down market at all. And I would say instead, it actually reflects quite the opposite. There's just huge demand, and we may not have enough inventory out there to meet the demand of everybody that's looking to buy a home. In particular, I reflect on the new build options out there. When I check our database for what's available, I recall, especially being that I worked for a builder for about 5+ years, that we always seem to have some inventory. Well, we wouldn't necessarily put it all out to the open market any given moment, so we didn't flood the market. I knew that I had so many new lots coming available, and I'd hopefully get those released within, depending on how quickly my sales were, I could pretty much get them released whenever I want. That is not the case out there nowadays. Yes, there is a lot of new build projects coming about, but be careful, especially when you're dealing with a lot of these high rises. You might think, oh, well, there's a great opportunity, and that's not the case. And quite often, those are already pre-sold, or they're being held onto by the owner of the building to sell in the future at higher market values. So really, there isn't the inventory that we would like to see out there. I'm going to share with you just a brief synopsis that our brokers put together that kind of reflects on what's been transpiring, at least for the month of September. And as you can see, the big one that kind of catches a lot of our eyes is the right here, the 792,000. So the average sale price in Kitchener-Waterloo, inclusive of our detached homes and everything else, is $792,000, which is astronomical. We're looking at 24% increase as opposed to what our average sale of homes was last year, and this is inclusive of everything. Now, if you want to get into the finer details, can get down here and look at our single detached homes, and we're pushing close to the $1 million mark, just shy of that. Now, keep in mind, depending on who's pulling the stats, you'll look at the board stats, Peak Real Estate stats, the CREA's stats, and they're all relatively the same. You might see 978, 958, but they're all kind of in that same ballpark. It depends on where they're pulling their stats from. So just keep that in mind as you're looking, and that will help hopefully explain why you're seeing slightly different averages for each of these homes. But again, they're all in the same ballpark, same with the price increases. Now, the largest one is down here in the townhome section at almost 36%. And this is where a little bit of hands and feet on the ground, personal experience might help you better understand why are townhouses increasing at such rapid percentage points as opposed to per se the single detached homes. It's not a case of people don't want the detached homes. It's just a case of what people qualify for. Being a mortgage agent, that's a big part of buying real estate. Almost everybody I've ever dealt with, for the most part, has required a mortgage. Now, here in Canada, we have to abide by what we call stress test numbers, and you can't just go to the bank and say, "I'd like to get $600,000." They're going to look at your income and a bunch of other scenarios. They're going to say, "Okay, based on that, this is what you qualify for." Okay, based on the stress test and whatever else. And that's the problem we're finding right now, is that so many people are trying to, either move up, or for many people, just trying to get a home, stop renting and throwing all their money away. And the issue we're having is that there's only so many homes available, which was traditionally the townhouse. And I guess that what we might happen to see, especially these townhouses are going up and up in prices, more and more buyers are bidding for these townhouses, and that they're going to perhaps start to peak. And we're going to start to see things like the condos go more and more so up. And a lot of people say, "Well, no, I don't want to live in a condo. It's not going to accommodate my family." Unfortunately, it may be all that you qualify for. So it's either going to be a case of I can buy a condo, or I can just choose to keep on renting. I often reflect on Europe. For those of you who have been to Europe or many other places, inclusive of Asia, or even bigger cities like New York and wherever else. You'll find that the mass majority of the people living there have to live in some sort of multi-residential accommodation. So that, I fear, is kind of where we're going, and it's just going to be a bit of an adjustment for us and future generations. So there you go. The other thing I'd like to share with you is, as realtors, we often meet on a weekly basis to do more or less a deep dive into what's transpiring out there, because we only deal with so many different transactions from one week to the next, and we really want to keep our hands on the pulse of the market. So I'm going to share with you another spreadsheet that we put together. It's a lot more information and data there, but for those of you that like this type of information, hopefully you'll find that insightful. So let's switch over to that. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of information here. I'd just like to highlight perhaps a couple key points. In particular, as we discussed earlier, prices are going higher and higher, and we ask, well, why is that? Now, some are attributing this to the fact that we have here in Ontario, in Canada, what we call the blind auction system. So the idea is that you don't necessarily know the details of your competitors, and you do pretty much a blind auction. Everybody throws in their best bid, and the seller picks and chooses based on that best bid. Now, one of the things that was brought up by the Liberal government during the recent election, federal election, was the idea that we would change the way we're doing real estate or selling real estate from an a blind auction system to an open bidding system. So by open bidding system, we mean that you will now know the particulars of your competitors. So, if you take a house and it's listed at 500,000 and you're putting an offer at 550,000, and you will be notified that your competitor has offered a price at 560. And I'm not entirely sure how the dynamics of that would work, because often there's a lot more to it than just the price. Things like the closing date, what's included with the home, such as appliances, hot tubs, whatever else. And then of course there's just the fact that the client might have a better financial standing. Maybe they're putting down 30% on the home as opposed to merely 5%. But all that aside, at this point in time, we are not into the open bidding system. So there is a lot of reflection as to, will that help ease the issue of this lack of housing and the rapid rise of homes? If you look here at this little chart, you'll see that a lot of these homes are selling list to sell ratio, so list price to sell ratio, 115% or so as the average, and especially in the lower price ranges, I've got 18, almost 19% above list price is what some of these homes have been selling for. Now, it does fluctuate from week to week, as you can see here, but as you can see recently, it seems to be on the rise. But again, be careful, don't pay too much attention to just one little area. Let's look at the averages. Down here, you could always argue, oh, well, look at that. If I buy between 1.3 and 1.5, I should be able to perhaps get a discount, because these homes actually sold at 96.63. But it's just a case of what sold that week. As you can see here, we only actually had one sale. So it's very easy for those percentages to fluctuate from week to week. Looking at the week prior, we actually were selling in that same price range at 105%. Hence, you'd be paying more or less 5% above list price. But these are all just averages, so be careful with that. It might have been the case somebody paid 10% above list price, and somebody else might have paid 3% under list price. The bigger issue here is, in my opinion, is not so much the way that we buy and sell houses. It's the fact that we don't have enough inventory. So if you look a little higher here on my sheet, you'll see that this last week, and we do it week by week as a brokerage, we actually did increase our inventory. So the number of homes available by about 24, hence we show about 415 homes, whereas the week prior we had 391 homes, which was also on the rise. Okay, and you can see the week before that it was again a slight increase. So we do seem to be having a bit of an increase in inventory, which is a really good sign. But as my broker has indicated here in his notes below here, that as we get into the Christmas season, we usually find that we start to get less homes available on the market, and we do find there's a bit of an influx of buyers that are in that shopping mood. And so unfortunately, as much as we're appreciating a little bit of a reprieve, it's probably going to be short-lived. And that being said, we are still at record lows. I believe we have in here so much data, but I think we're looking more or less 2.5 weeks worth of inventory, which is record lows for us as far as what's available. So yeah, we'll wait to see what transpires in regards to this open versus blind auction system there. But I've actually got a little article further down that talks a little bit more about that, and it actually talks about Australia, who's also seeing crazy high price increases across their country there, and yet they adhere to the open auction system. So according to this article, don't hold your breath. As much as you think that might help alleviate the problem, I don't think that's going to be the case. Really, what we do need is an inventory increase, and I'm not really seeing much hope on the horizon there. So who knows? If you're going to buy, I've also indicated some other articles down below where it talks about the pros and cons of should I rent versus buy. I've got a lot of buyers that just become very disfranchised with the whole system, saying, again, I'm just going to keep on renting. And and that's definitely their prerogative. And there are some definite pros to renting as opposed to owning. But I would argue that there's a lot more pros to owning a home. And from a purely mathematical standpoint, there was a recent poll that was put together, or not so much a poll, a study that was put together by Royal LePage, and then actually evaluates, even at these higher prices, does it make sense from a financial standpoint to own a home as opposed to renting? And again, every person's situation is unique, every home is unique, every city is unique, but for the most part, according to their studies, it does make more sense to own a home as opposed to renting. One thing they highlight is the fact that, yes, while it might cost you more to own a home, as mortgage payments are more and you got property taxes and whatever else, keep in mind a significant chunk of that is going towards principal. They also highlight in this article, and you can read below there, which I posted in my newsletter, that even if homes did not continue to accelerate, a lot of people think, oh, I want to see capital growth, I want to see this house increase in value. Even if it did not do that, it's purely just a case of you paying the mortgage payment, you would actually be in a much better situation. So if you'd like to dive into your situation, I do know I've got a lot of renters out there that think, oh, it makes more sense to rent, but perhaps you're missing part of the equation that we should perhaps discuss. So by all means, feel free to give me a call, email, whatever. I'd love to talk to you. I love helping people. Or if you got a family member or a friend or a colleague at work that just really needs a little bit of assistance understanding why does it make more sense to own as opposed to rent, and especially from a financial perspective, have them reach out to me. It'd be my pleasure to assist them there. Okay. But anyways, as you can see here, in the lower price ranges, anywhere from 500,000 up to $1 million, or especially up to about 800,000, 900,000, we see significant percentage increases above the sale price. Now, one thing that is causing this, which many people I find are not aware of, which I'm somewhat surprised by as we've been doing this for a while, is that we tend to list houses under market value, especially in the lower price ranges where there is a higher demand, as there's just more buyers that can afford to purchase in that price point. Why would people do that? Well, because they want to get the job done quickly. They don't want people renegotiating on things like inspections and trying to renegotiate the sale of the home. Just peace of mind having it done very quickly. As you can see on our recent stats, I think the sheet I showed you earlier there, the average home is only on the market 10 days. Why? Well, huge demand, but it's partially the fact that we were just underlisting them, which is creating an influx of buyers, which is giving really putting the seller in the control seat, being able to pick and choose which offers would be the most desirable to them. Hence, when you look at these percentages, why, Dan, are houses selling 11%, 15%, 19% over list? Yes, it is partially based on the fact that there's just significant demand. But the other part of it is that we are underselling. I can give you numerous examples of condos and townhouses and detached houses where we have comps that are almost identical, and yet you'll see the sale price and you say, Dan, this doesn't make any sense. Why is it listed $50,000 to $75,000 less than their neighbor when the home's almost identical? It's because if you look at what the neighbor house sold, they actually listed it also about 75,000 or 50 or 100, $150,000 under the market or under what they sold for. They got that price. So the thought process is, hey, what if I do the same thing and I can hopefully get the same result or perhaps even better results? And that's what we're finding is happening now. So I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it is a case of what's happening out there. And I find that to some degree, knowledge is power. Rather than wasting your time and getting your emotions going up and down through the cycles of what happens there, it's a good idea for us to, I find with my clients, to sit down and review the recent sales so they can assess the market and at least have a better understanding of what's happening out there. Doesn't mean that we can stop it, but at least we're not as discouraged. So yeah, if you have any friends or family that would like to perhaps sit down, discuss things, we can do it over Zoom. So if they don't want to come meet my office, I'm happy to be back in the office now. I do love to meet face to face, but I realize that we are in a technologically advanced era and people like to meet online via Zoom, and I'm very comfortable with that. I do, to be honest, the bulk of my real estate and mortgage transactions online because, hey, people just appreciate doing it that way. So by all means, if you have anybody who would like to meet up, let me know, and it'd be my pleasure to arrange a time to dive into the deeper details of real estate. And if you would like an update on the value of your home, again, it'd be my pleasure to help you out with that. Have yourself a great day.